Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our commitment is to help, hope, and healing of our veteran family and our nation. I'm Jim Blythe, a U.S. Navy veteran and a certified senior advisor. Join us as we continue the mission of leadership and commitment to our communities and our great country. Why, you never know where we're going to go or who you're going to meet. We invite you to join in, plug in, and share in what we do. This is your Veterans Impact Show. Great day to you today. This is Jim Blythe, certified senior advisor and your host for Veterans Impact Show. Cedric is out saving a life today, so he couldn't join us. Literally, he called me a while ago. I want to tell you, this is really great. We're now with the Real News Network studios, Jeff Crilly. That has made a big difference. So again, I want to say a special thank you to Jeff Crilly and Real News Network. Also, DBTV Network puts us on Amazon Fire and Roku, smart TVs. Wow, we're going up scale Saturday night. And you know what? I look a whole lot better on radio than I do on TV. But we're going to make the best of it, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Also, I want to thank my sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, who I work for. My MLS number is 311-548, the corporate one, 2289. We are an equal opportunity lender, and our attorneys are equal opportunity listening to this. So also, I want to thank Symbios and all they do to help veterans and Americans to stay alive and be healthy. And with that, Healing Thine Heart Ministries with Cedric, what an amazing opportunity to have a great friend. Now, all of that said, a great friend is somebody who does so much for the community, in my book, so much that you want to be friends with. So I'm introducing a great couple, Colonel Jeff Galt and the Honorable Rose Galt, the wonderful friends of mine who run the Army Scholarship Foundation. I want to play you a quick note. So Jordan, go ahead and play that for me, please.
Since 2001, the Army Scholarship Foundation has provided hundreds of academic scholarships to Army family members.
I support ASF because they take care of the children of the military and give them the opportunities to go to college.
I know that there are many charities out there, but ours is unique in that there is no paid staff, and it is entirely run by volunteers in a passion for what they are doing and wanting to help our military families.
Jeff, thank you for that. And thank you for what you do in Army Scholarship Foundation. Let's go back. You guys started this in about 2001?
Yes, 2001.
And it was started by a group of Army vets, and then you and Rose took it over. You've built it up. You give out approximately how many scholarships per year?
This year we gave out just under 400.
400. Wow. And those scholarships range from $500 to $1,000 to $2,000, right?
Yes, yes.
Now, it's not just necessarily a one-time scholarship. You can repeat it if you apply again, and you're for 4 years.
Yes, it's for the previous recipients. It's repeatable or can be renewed for 4 consecutive years.
Now, let's tell everybody who this is for, and then we're going to tell them why.
Well, we provide scholarships to children of soldiers and spouses of active duty enlisted soldiers, either veterans killed or died in action or on active duty, or veterans who served honorably in the Army.
And it's amazing. One of the things that I want people to know, and you and Rose can talk about this, it's tough to be married in the Army.
It is.
It's tough to be married in the Navy. You know what they told us? If you want to be married, Navy would have issued you a wife. I can just imagine what I would have gotten. So, Jeff, how many schools did your children go through?
Well, we have 3 kids, and each child went to 8 different schools throughout their high school.
And that's schools around the world?
Yes, around the world.
What did you do in the Army?
I was in artillery and missile defense, and so was deployed twice for Desert Storm, then Desert Shield, and then subsequently once again. And we had 5 different tours in Europe.
Wow. Now, Rose, that must have been nice because you were originally from the Netherlands.
I am I am, Jim, and that's where I met Jeff, actually. And this April, we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary.
No way, you're not that old.
Well,
What did you see this handsome Army guy, and he goes, wow, a movie star. Can I get your autograph?
Well, we were both working at the NATO headquarters in the Netherlands.
Really?
You may remember in 1967, the French were nice enough to kick NATO out of the country. So some of those headquarters moved to Belgium and the Netherlands and other places. So I got a job there, and he came in as a young lieutenant, and the rest is history, so
The
to
rest
speak.
is history. But you both have a passion for young men and women, and that's why you took up the mantle of this Army Scholarship Foundation. Again, I think it's so important that people know these kids need help. Now, when Jeff said 8 schools, that's 8 schools that may not be in the same community. That's 8 schools that may be Europe 1 year, Korea 3 years later, Colorado, Georgia, God help them, South Louisiana, Fort Polk. Oh, I don't think I'd want to go there.
Yeah, that's correct. We and actually, 2 of my children went to German schools, so they learned to speak German because the American school was kind of very far from where we lived. So I just put them in the German school, and they had to learn German, and then come back to the States, and my little one had to learn English again.
So it's very difficult. I imagine if they were on sports teams, they got their careers in sports interrupted.
They did, Jim. In fact, let me read an excerpt, if I may, from
please
a
do.
student. We receive applications from students, and to that very point, this soldier or this young man, child of a soldier, wrote to us, because my father was in the Army, I had to move for my senior year in high school. I had to leave all my friends, teams, and relationships behind and move to a place with different people, food, and customs. The possibilities of becoming a wrestling or baseball team captain were lost, and I would not have the opportunity to run for the student body president in my high school. My dad had 7 deployments, and we had to move 8 times. So that's sort of a
pretty
snapshot
typical
of the life of a typical military child.
But one of the things is I have noted is these children, while they go through so much, I would imagine, moves, consternation, difficulties, setbacks, disappointments, they seem to be resilient. Your children went on, they've got degrees, they've got great careers, they've got great families. So there is strength in that. And yet there are some of the worst tragedies I have ever read, because I got the chance to help you guys out and read the applications. Holy cow. I got to tell you, let me read one.
Okay.
You were reading one. My father was injured in a roadside bomb explosion in Iraq. After being in a hospital in Germany, he was sent home. He had many surgeries done, and because of his brain injuries, he still suffers from memory loss and post-traumatic stress disorder. He has taught me not to give up, lose hope, or never settle for less than what I should. The hard times made me more focused on school because I want to make my family proud and do all I can to help others. The support and effort my dad shows to help his family, even with everything he has been through, push me to make myself the best person I can. That's what I'm finding of these young men and women.
They can really survive. They are resilient, adaptable, and they've had so many experiences that other children may not have been able to have.
And this is important. So the Army Scholarship Foundation, there are a number of scholarships. I know the Army Emergency Relief, Ray Mason, as a friend, I don't think he's still involved with that right now, but they have a scholarship deal. But your deal, 400 scholarships, that is a lot. That is a lot of work.
Yes.
And I know all of the things, as you mentioned in that video clip, everybody's a volunteer.
That's why we're able to do it, is because we have so many really helpful volunteers like you and your wife who come and help to evaluate scholarships and score those against certain criteria, grades, extracurricular activities, leadership, and so on. And you and Diane just are invaluable to us, as are our other volunteers, in accomplishing what we do.
I got to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I'm going to tell you also, take a box of tissues with you. If you get a chance and you know Rose and Jeff, and they say, hey, would you like to come evaluate? Take a box of tissues with you, because you're going to hear some stories. You're going to hear some tremendous success stories of people who literally rose out of the ashes. And that, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, right?
Yes, yes. We see that with scores and scores and hundreds of military kids.
Now, we're going to make this into how can we help? Because a lot of people say to me, how can I help my military? Who do I give money to? Who gives the most? Because I've heard, well, this foundation, they had executives making $600,000 a year.
Yes.
I've heard this foundation, they do this, and then I've heard that foundation, they do that. Every penny goes into scholarships, except for the mail. That's about right, correct?
Yeah, we have some minimal overhead costs. We have to be audited every year to make sure that funds are properly accounted for, and so you have to pay your auditor, and there are certain things you have to pay for. But well in excess of 90% of our funds go to scholarships.
Now, your big fundraiser is coming up this next month, October the 30th, correct?
Yes.
In Dallas at the Frontiers of Flight Museum. Now, that's going to be a lot of fun. If you're in Dallas-Fort Worth and you've never been to the Frontiers of Flight, what are you waiting for? Here's a chance to go and see some great antique airplanes. I mean, wow, it's a lot of fun. But Jeff, besides this being a great venue of aviation, you're going to have a great speaker, Flo Groberg. Tell us a little bit about Flo.
Yeah, Captain Flo Groberg has really a remarkable story. He was born and grew up in France until he was 10 years old. Then his family immigrated to the United States legally and became a legal American citizen. He went to the University of Maryland through their ROTC program, was commissioned as an infantry officer, deployed in combat twice to Afghanistan, and on his second deployment, in the action for which he was cited for the Medal of Honor, he was severely wounded and spent a long time in recovery in Walter Reed, but received the Medal of Honor from President Obama for his heroic actions. And he is going to be our guest speaker for this luncheon on the 30th of October.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there were a number of people badly injured, and then he got injured, and he went back and got somebody else, or he did something that was just truly heroic and amazing.
Well, obviously, receiving the Medal of Honor requires extraordinary heroism and valor. And there were a number of other soldiers involved. And like many or virtually all of the Medal of Honor recipients, they attribute their receipt of the award to the soldiers that they served with, and not necessarily to their personal actions.
Well, Jeff, that's one of the things about the military. We've always got each other's back. Mm-hmm. You know, we always stand there, and that's what we're doing today. And so if you are in our audience around the world, on Amazon Fire, on Roku, on smart TVs, and you say, gee, I want to support our veterans. I don't know, because I've heard all these good things and bad things. Who do I support? Well, let me tell you something. Diane and I support the Army Scholarship Foundation. We will be there at this luncheon. But more than that, there is a donation button on there. And one of the things I think is important to go to their website, because you can learn about the Army Scholarship Foundation and you can be a part of this, whether you're in Florida, down there with Paula, if you're in Galveston, you're in Richmond, Virginia, wherever you are, Portland, Oregon. I got to tell you, we'd love to have you participate and make a donation of any size. It will help. The average scholarship is what, $1,000?
Just over $1,000, yes.
Now, a lot of people say, well, gee, college, $1,000 doesn't buy much today. You know what we found? Because I've talked to some of these young people. The mere fact that they get the scholarship gives them a tremendous boost, but it vets them. Everybody knows these people have been vetted. They know who they are. And they usually cobble together several other scholarships. Correct, Rose?
Yes, absolutely, Jim. You hit the nail on the head, and that's what they do. Most importantly, though, and we've heard that from a number of students, sometimes just getting these $1,000 enforces their decision, makes them go to college because they can't afford it. A lot of our soldiers are on food stamps. Let's not forget that. So they're not always doing well. There's not really, they don't receive comparable pay to the jobs in the civilian world. The soldiers really have a tough life. And I have moved 20 times, and I have made curtains out of bed sheets, and I have dealt with people and helped them through the USO and other organizations. It is tough. You're absolutely right.
It is very tough. And Jeff, you were a commander of a brigade, division? Again, I'm Navy. I don't necessarily know how all that works in the Army.
I was fortunate to command a battalion in Germany, and then subsequent to that, I commanded all U.S. Army forces deployed in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain after Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And then I was also the garrison commander at Fort Bliss.
Well, let me tell you what I've found from my Navy captains and Navy admirals, many of which have become good friends. Their wives are an integral part of the military community. The wives are the go-to person, especially if the unit gets deployed overseas. That becomes an amazing function. So we're talking about the Army family. We're talking about Army Scholarship Foundation. We want you to go there. We want you to donate. We want you to be a part of it. And if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area or anywhere in Texas, or if you want to come from Chicago and get out of the cold, come on down, because it's going to be a hot time in Dallas for the Army Scholarship Foundation Luncheon. Again, it's going to be October 30th at the Frontier Flight Museum. You can go online, Army Scholarship Foundation, and sign up.
.org.
Yeah, .org. Thank you, ladies. And then my beautiful wife, Diane, always correcting me. So we're going to be right back with more from Jeff and Rose Galt and the Army Scholarship Foundation. We're here for you. We're here for help, hope, and healing. This is the Veterans Impact Show. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. We're talking about the Army family. We're talking about the military family and the importance of education. Army Scholarship Foundation last year provided over 400 scholarships. Their luncheon is coming up October the 30th. We'd like for you to participate, join in, buy a table, be a sponsor, buy a chair, and donate. If you can't come, donate and help us out. We need to raise. Jeff, how many applications you got this year coming in?
Just under 1,000.
Just under 1,000. Just under 1,000?
Yeah.
So 1,000 times 1,000,
Yes.
that's $1 million.
No,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Hey,
yeah,
Jeff,
it's a
I
lot
got
of
a
money.
degree.
Yeah.
I got a degree in finance. You got a degree in artillery. You blow them up and I'll count them. Okay. We need to raise about $1 million.
we would love to raise $1 million.
Okay. So if every Army veteran in the United States would give us $10, we'd be there.
We'd be there.
Oh, we would well
We'd
be
be
there. Yeah.
And we're also in the Combined Federal Campaign,
Yeah,
which is
tell us about that.
undergoing. The Combined Federal Campaign is a worldwide, nationwide charitable campaign run by the U.S. government, and the charities that apply to be considered in the Combined Federal Campaign are vetted very thoroughly. And we were fortunate enough to be in it for like the 10th year in a row now. And donations can be made by any federal retiree or military retiree or any federal employee. And our Combined Federal Campaign number is 24394. And that's on our website at www.armyscholarshipfoundation.org. So,
Please
Combined
say it
Federal
again.
Camp. So that's one way. Or they can go on the website and donate. Again, CFC, Combined Federal Campaign number 24394.
On the website too, you got some stories and you got some photographs, and you've also got that bit that we played at the opening of the program. But you can learn a whole lot more about what they do and how they do it. Now, what if I'm military and I'm watching Amazon Fire, Roku, and I'm in Fort Bliss? You were there. I'm in Fort Polk. I'm in Fort Sill. Oh, yeah, I imagine you've been up there. And I think my son or daughter in senior year in high school, junior year, really wants to go to a great school. How do we get a scholarship? It's on your website. All of the qualifications, all of the things that have got to be done. And they get to write a story.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I'll let Rose tell a story about one that we found to be especially poignant a couple of years ago as we were reading through these packets, as you have done, scoring military kids.
Yeah, we were, he came home with his big brown envelope and said, "You got to look at this." So I opened up the envelope and out come 2 pieces of paper. And they're both death certificates. And this was a young lady who was at the time, I think, a sophomore in college. And I started looking at them, and he was a little white. And I was like, it turns out this was the daughter of a serviceman who had killed himself and killed his wife.
Oh,
when
no.
the little girl was 10 years old. So she had been raised by a guardian, because the guardian had signed the application, and she was going to college. And we were just, you can't really talk at that moment. You just have to process this and think, what a burden does this child have to grow up with? I mean, we can't imagine it, of course. There's no way. But this particular young lady went to college, and we gave her scholarships, and she graduated 2 years later.
Now, do you follow up with many of these? I know you follow up with some of them.
Well, and we get thank you notes from them.
Yeah.
They let us know when they graduate, because as Jeff said earlier, if they keep up their grades, they can have a scholarship every year. So you can get 4 scholarships in a row. Now, we do not do master's degrees and things like that, but we figure our main goal is, and that was my main goal when getting involved, is so that the kids can become productive members of society. That's what we want most. That's why we don't even give out always 4-year scholarships to 4-year schools. If you want to become a hairdresser, or if you want to go to beauty school, trade schools, we will give you a scholarship for that as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
so it has to be accredited institution for that particular type of learning, which there are many. But we just want kids to be, as I said, productive members of society. But I tell you, Jim, if you get something like that in front of you, you're so grateful, and you know why you're doing this.
Yes.
As Jeff said, you're a volunteer. We don't get paid, but it makes it all worth it. It makes it all worth it.
There was a young lady who spoke at one of your deals, and I was there. And her husband was up at Fort Sill.
Yes.
And an amazing thing happened. at that deal. Can you tell us that
Well,
quickly?
this was one of our luncheons, and it's a great reason to come to our luncheon, by the way, on the 30th. So we generally try to have a student scholarship recipient come and speak. And this was a young lady whose husband was a private first class at Fort Sill. She lived in Fort Worth and was going full-time to Texas Women's University in Denton and working full-time in Denton, had 2 children under the age of 10, and was trying to manage all of that, commuting, childcare. And she spoke at the luncheon. And we have, as you mentioned earlier, a number of corporate sponsors who attend the luncheon. And one of the corporations that was there was the head person who attended was
They offered her a job.
on the spot.
On the
Offered her
spot.
a job on the spot. And once she graduated, she actually went to work for them and subsequently earned an MBA and got a couple of degrees.
Oh, wow.
And-
All right. I've got to interrupt you because we're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors. And I want to say thank you to everybody who helps us and sponsors us. And thank you especially to DBTV Network for putting us on Amazon Fire and Roku. This is Jim Blythe, and this is the Veterans Impact Show. And we're here to help veterans like Rose and Jeff Galt. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. Jeff, I had to interrupt you because we were going to a break, and I apologize. But one of the points you made was a young lady got offered a job on the spot
Yes.
at the luncheon she spoke at. She was tremendously eloquent.
Yes.
I mean, she was really great. And I have a feeling that many of the young men and women that have been through your program have found instant jobs as they came out of whatever school they
Yes.
were in.
Well, one of the things that we, as a slight adjustment or diversion from what you're talking about, one of our successes is that our students graduate at about a 90% rate from college, whereas nationwide, the average college graduation rate after 6 years is about 65%. So our children, going back to your earlier point about resilience and adaptability, our scholarship recipients graduate at a much higher rate. It's just amazing. But your point is well taken. We had another lady who spoke last year, and her story is another one. There are so many stories. She was wanting to go to college, and her father was a disabled veteran, unable to work, and so she had to give up her dreams of a college education in order to work as a barista to help support her family. And yet she still harbored the dreams of going to school and continued to apply for scholarships, did not receive any. And then she tells the story that one day she got a scholarship, a letter from us that said she had received our scholarship. It was the first scholarship she had ever received. And to go back to the point you made earlier, that gave her the encouragement to go ahead and apply for other awards, and she subsequently was able to return to school, and she actually just graduated here this past December and is now gainfully employed. She too, when she spoke at our luncheon, got job offers from multiple people, one of whom you recently had on your show, Congressman Keith Self. He was present at the luncheon and was so impressed with her, he offered her a job right then.
Was that Natalie?
No, it was Sarah was her name.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've met her.
Yeah.
Congressman Keith Self is my congressman because
Yes.
we moved up to that area. He is an Army graduate,
Yes.
West Point graduate. He is an Army, 21 years, and an amazing congressman. I really enjoyed getting to know him. This is important. You know, one of the deals I was sitting at, I got the impression this guy said, well, who are you with? And he says, like Toyota USA. And I'm like, okay, well, what, tell me a little bit about here. Well, I'm the guy that's over veterans relations or whatever. He had never been to it. He didn't know. And he was amazed. He started talking about at the end of the deal, he said, wow, this is amazing. These guys are doing tremendous. So one of the things I think major corporations who are looking to hire veterans, you want to look to hire a veteran, get involved with Army Scholarship Foundation. Have a table. Fill it up with some of your people to go in and meet some of these folks. You want to be part of our American military, here's the time and here's the place, because you are impacting people. You are firing the greatest missile in the world, putting a kid into college that will go and do things in the world. Good analogy?
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
And many of the children who receive our scholarships do enter the military after they graduate. They join the ROTC programs, and they have that patriotism that compels them to serve, just as their parent had served, and so they join after
Jeff,
graduating.
Something comes to mind, so it's maybe a loaded question, but let's say that I'm a young man or woman, and I can't get the money. My parents, we don't have it. And I sign up for one of the ROTC slots. There's an Army ROTC, Navy ROTC, Air Force ROTC. I think SMU is Air Force. University of Texas is both Navy and Army. If I go into one of those programs, can I still qualify? Because those programs, do they cover everything, or do you need some help?
They do not cover everything. And yes, depending upon family income, they could qualify for one of our scholarships.
Wow, that's a big thing. So again, you want to go to ArmyScholarshipFoundation.org, ArmyScholarshipFoundation.org. And it's important for our active duty military to know we've got their back. We've got their kids' back. We're helping them. Here's a great picture that Jordan's putting up, and thank you, Jordan. These are all recipients of the foundation scholarship, aren't
Yes,
they?
yes.
Good grief, look
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about diversity, but there's everyone, and everyone has a chance. You just need to want to do it and send in the application. And I think you mentioned it earlier too. You can now apply online as well, so that makes it a little easier for the student. It's more in line with what kids do these days.
And
So-
some young man or woman might be a little bit intimidated by the application. Let me tell you, it's not that hard.
No.
The best part of it, though, I think, is the story they write.
Yes.
And here's another one right here that I'd love to read if you guys let me. It says, both my mom and dad had served in the military. Once while we lived in Guam, my mom was gone for over 100 days, and although our dad took care of us, we had no other family members who came to visit or help out. They didn't have any family members that were covering their back. Even more traumatic were my dad's 3 deployments to Iraq and several to Afghanistan for 6 to 8 months at a time. I would have nightmares and crying outbursts at school. Also, all of the moves have been very tough on me. I really crave not to have to move constantly. In spite of all this, I'm very proud my mom and dad have served in all of the challenges and experiences that shaped my personality and made me a stronger person. No kidding. That kid got to be tough as nails after a while. And I think this is important of another great recruiting tool to me is you're going to learn leadership. You're going to learn resilience. You're going to learn to adapt, improvise, and implement and get things done that I think you don't get that much out of college by comparison. You get a degree, and that is a piece of paper that says, I survived college, and you go get a job, and the next thing you know, you're learning something every day.
Well, you're absolutely right, Jim. Military families serve too. They didn't sign up necessarily for it, particularly the children. It was the military member who signed up, and the spouse, who generally knows that they're getting into a military situation, they sign up, but the kids don't sign up. And they're the ones that have to endure constant moves, new schools, starting over, having to deal with missing out on sports teams opportunities, leadership opportunities. They miss the election for student council. They miss selection for cheerleaders because all those things happen in the spring before they come. It happened to our son one year. We moved from Europe to Pennsylvania, and our son had played in the band throughout his junior high school years, and he was going into high school. We went down to the high school where the summer band practice had already started, and the coach or the bandmaster said, "I'm sorry, our son played the bass clarinet, which is kind of an oddball instrument." The guy said, "I have enough bass clarinet players. I can't use you," and so he was terribly, terribly disappointed. But he was persistent, and he kept going back. And finally, the bandmaster found a place for him. He had to learn a different instrument, but he got a spot. But those kids don't necessarily get the same opportunities as those who stay in the same community for their whole lives.
Well, I know when I was a kid, we moved, and in the third grade, I went from one school to one on the other side of Dallas. It was tough. And it took till junior high to begin to get other relationships. Mm-hmm. But kids form tight bonds and relationships when they're real young in school together. I was always the last one picked for hey, we're going to play a baseball team. Okay, Jimmy goes last. Soccer, really last. Football, hey, I was about the second one because I love to tackle. I was good at that. But I think this is important. And again, I want to come back to something. I want to make a point because a lot of people come in and out of a program. So if you didn't hear me before, I'm going to say it again. We need to support our military. We need to support the best of our military, which are the children of the military. And the Army Scholarship Foundation does it. Almost 99.9% of the money you give goes to the scholarships. The money spent is admin money, mail. You mentioned the audits that you have to have. But for the most part, it's guys like me and ladies like Diane who are sitting there in their living room with a packet of about 10 high of these applications. And we read all of them. Mm-hmm. And you have to read them more than once, and then they're scored. Some of those applications, again, I'm telling you, you want to get out your own checkbook right then and there and go, hey, let's take care of this kid. And you can take care of military children by donating to the Army Scholarship Foundation.org. If I sound like a Baptist preacher asking for money, well, I am an ordained chaplain, and I am asking for money for Army Scholarship Foundation. So go to their website, ArmyScholarshipFoundation.org, and help military kids. Now, Rose, you mentioned a word a while ago, and I happen to know when I said honorable, a lot of people don't know what that means, but that means you had a post in the U.S. government, and you were the assistant, deputy secretary, mm-hmm. Deputy Secretary of Diversity for the U.S. Air Force.
Yeah, we did strategic diversity integration.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting because you have to understand the Air Force for years and years was a male-dominated force. Mm-hmm. And
what? I got to tell you, the Navy was.
Well, yeah, but also about 50% of the officers are academy graduates. They're fighter pilots. So you can imagine fighter pilots they have a little bit of an ego maybe.
I served in a Navy squadron. John McCain was one of my pilots.
Oh, wow.
And my pilots were Vietnam veterans and fighter pilots. Mm-hmm. One of my closest friends now is Dave Carey, who was 5.5 years a POW, shot down August 31st of 1967. I know the fighter jock mentality.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. But I got to tell you, those men inspire people. And it is. And I went, thanks to Admiral Beale, he got me a deal to go on the USS Truman with the media in 2017. I was the oldest man on the ship. And I got to tell you, going up and down the ladders was a lot easier when I was 20-something.
I believe
But
it.
I got to tell you, I walked out on we got off that COD, the transport plane, did the arrested landing. We stepped out of that thing, and here were women working as aviation bosun mates. Blew me away. I'm like, what?
Well, the picture is a little bit different now, thank goodness, for the women. So we do have women fighter pilots now, and women are allowed in combat. And it was a very interesting position. I was in the Pentagon. I got to meet a lot of interesting people. I got to go a lot of, like we went to the NAACP conference in Phoenix, Arizona. I got to talk to people, and I got to plug the Army Scholarship Foundation wherever I went. So that was also kind of nice, because actually we're the only service, well, not the only one, but our foundation gives scholarships. Other organizations will give loans and stuff like that, but we give straight scholarships. And as you mentioned before, we're going to have our fundraiser on the 30th of October, and you probably want to say a little bit more about that. We have a bunch of sponsors, but we can always use more. We can always use more people to attend. So please.
Well, we need to raise $1 million.
Yes.
So I challenge you. If you're an Army veteran, I challenge you, make a contribution to the Army Scholarship Foundation and know that you're helping to put a young man or a young woman through college. It's not how much, it's being a part of it that really counts and helps these young men and women. And I got to tell you, when you go to that scholarship luncheon and you meet some of these young men and women, they are so appreciative. You are helping them to have a great life. And again, as you said, 100% of them graduate from college.
Well,
Well,
90
not-
plus.
yeah.
90 plus, no,
Much
way up
better
there.
than the national average.
Much better than
Yeah.
national average. And I got to tell you, well, my 4 years in the Navy, when I got out, wild horses and bull elephants could not have kept me from getting a degree. I did it. And I got to tell you, I used all the help I could get. That's why I went to work in real estate. Still am. But Jeff, this is so important. We've talked about this, and we talked about diversity. You were involved in diversity back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Early 2000s, yes.
We've come a long way in 25 years, but the military led the way in desegregation and diversity going back to World War II with the Tuskegee Airmen. And there were Army, battalions that were African American.
Yes.
Now, it's not been perfect. It has absolutely not been perfect, and a lot of mistakes have been made. But the military leads the way on diversity. And I got to tell you, we've got each other's back, whether we're Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, Merchant Marine, Air Force. Well, I don't know about Air Force, but anyway,
Yes, Space Force.
we kibitz among the branches. Thank you again, and we're going to be coming back in just a second to finish up with Rose and Jeff, talking about the Army Scholarship Foundation and how you can participate. You want to put your name on a check, help them out. They have a donate button on the Army Scholarship Foundation.org. So take a look at it, see what you can do. Also, if you're just signing up and you want to be a part of our show, then subscribe. Let us know. Send me an email, Jim Blythe at veteransimpactshow.com. Thank you. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. Again, I ask you, if you'd like to know more, if you'd like to recommend a program, if you'd like to make a comment on a program, send me an email, jim@veteransimpactshow.com. That's jim@veteransimpactshow.com. Trust me, I answer the phone too, 214-502-4600. Ask Paula in Florida. We're here to help you and to help people and help veterans and also help veterans integrate back into society. And one of the most important things we're talking about, and this is an important thing, is when their kids are taken care of, mom and dad do better as well, don't they, Jeff?
Absolutely, absolutely. Every parent wants their child to succeed and be a success in life. And the fact that the children may get a scholarship to college to help them improve their future is very significant to the military family and the military member themselves.
Jeff, you were, 25, 30 years in the Army?
29.
29. Well, I was close. You look back, and I know you had some great adventures. What would you say to a young man or woman that is thinking about, man, they're in high school, man, they're in college, or they're thinking about going to college and thinking about, well, wow, how could I get my scholarship paid for by the military, the ROTC program? What would you say to the young man or woman?
Well, it's an opportunity of a lifetime and to serve the nation, to achieve your college degree, and then to be able to grow and have a job as a officer, usually with ROTC as an officer, and to serve the nation for a couple of years. If only you do that and get out, you don't have to make a career of the military, of the Army. I would say it's an opportunity not to be missed. Take it.
Well, Rose, a young lady comes to you and says, Miss Galt, I'm thinking about marrying an Army guy. What would you say to her?
Oh, I never had a problem with it, and I would say absolutely. Now, again, as we just mentioned, times have changed a little bit. The situations have changed a little bit. Usually now you have working families where the mother and the father work. In my day, when we started out, I did work, but there was a time that I didn't, and I stayed home with the kids for a few years. But other than that, it's just a fantastic opportunity, Jim. You get to travel, and yes, the moves, once you have kids, they're not easy, but we had 4 tours in Europe. You get to travel around, you get to see things you would never, ever have seen otherwise, because travel is very expensive, as you know. So for the family, for a young person, and they still have job opportunities. You go to places where there's still job opportunities for women as well. So I would, and then, of course, the trend these days, a lot of people telecommute. So with that going on, there's no reason why a young person wouldn't say, yes, I don't mind being married to a person in the Army who gets deployed or who gets moved around numerous times. I would recommend it. I think it was a fantastic life, because wherever you went, yes, moving is hard, but you had a ready-made family there that received you and that supported you. And as you mentioned earlier about when on deployments, the wives, now it's spouses, all the organizations, of course, are called spouses organizations, but they're still predominantly wives. But they're all there for each other. Jeff was in Saudi Arabia, and a lot of his unit were reservists. Well, as you know, they only are part-time in the armed forces, but even those wives who'd had no clue about the service were calling me sometimes in the middle of the night when they had problems. But it's a great way to gain, to have opportunities and to gain experience and to see the world.
And I love the word family. You know, we have reunions. Matter of fact, I got to get with Ken Adams. We want to plan a reunion of our squadron, BA 163. You know, we had the highest casualty rate in the Navy in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, those guys, I love them. They're amazing. I think one of the most important things about the military, you can talk about job training from the standpoint of learn to do this technical skill. You're a pilot, you're a missile technician, you're a this, you're a that, you're an electronics technician, you're communication. You know what the most important part of being in the military is? Leadership.
Absolutely.
You know what the difference between the American military and the Russian military and the Chinese military is? The development of leadership among the enlisted ranks. You can go in and you can rise up. My grandfather did it. He went all the way from being a machinist mate to being a lieutenant commander in command of a ship. There are paths that you can go through, and you will meet some of the greatest people in the world, without a doubt.
The military definitely teaches people to be leaders. And to your point, they say that the non-commissioned officers are the backbone of the Army. They are the ones that teach soldiers. They're the ones that lead, and they're
Okay.
able to make decisions.
And if you want to lead, then lead yourself to the Frontiers Flight Museum in Dallas, October the 30th, near Love Field. It's going to be a wonderful luncheon. Flo Groberg is going to be there. He is a fantastic guy. We've just been amazed by him, what his story. So please join us there. And next week, because I'm not going to have a chance to say this again, we've got a great program with suicide prevention. We're here to help people. So I like to close with a prayer. Lord God of the universe, universal God of light and love, Abba, Father, we are so thankful for the hedge of protection you put around our active duty military, our first responders, those who run into the fire instead of away from it. Dear God, thank you for all you do for us. Thank you for the veterans who are working to bring this nation back together, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, dear God, for all you do for us. This we pray in your holy name. Amen. And thank you, Jeff and Rose Galt, for being part of Veterans Impact Show.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thank you for sharing the word about our great luncheon coming up on the 30th of October.
Hey, let's do it. But let's get together sometime and the four of us go have dinner and tell some fun sea stories. Thanks again. Thank you.